Hello everybody, Elias5891 is out on a ship's cruise today, 10% off 5th dimension travel, but that's not what we're here for. Filling in today, it's Timwee with another KTANE module tutorial. Today we're looking at the Ultracube, which is the module you see right in front of you here. This module looks very confusing at first. These movements of things are very weird, and looking at the manual, it doesn't seem to clear up a lot more. Especially if you're not familiar with 5th dimensional geometry, and to be honest, who is? So I am here today for you to clear this up, and to do so, I have already prepared a video of one of these sequence of rotations, which I have here, and I'm going to look at these rotations in order, and I'm going to use paint to try and explain. So we're going to look at the second rotation first of all, which is going to come up next. So I've just paused the video. So I want you to take a look at the Hypercube, at the Ultracube as it is on the video, and take a look at what this line does, this top edge. Right? Take a look at where it moves. Alright? So if you've paid close attention, you will have noticed that it moved to here. Alright? So you could argue that the top line moved to the left, kind of like this, and that the other line sort of moved down. So you could see this as a sort of left and down movement. Now let's take a look at the manual. In the manual, you have these sort of arrows which talk about X, Y, Z, V, and W. And each of them have a plus and a minus, all right? So this direction here, which goes all the way to the left, like this one here, this is marked here as negative X or left. Well, let's just write that down, negative X. What about the other one? This one is going straight down. Well, that's labeled right here as negative Z. And so let's write that down as well, negative Z. Okay, now because both of them are negative, the negatives cancel out. So we can write this down as just XZ. And that's our first rotation, or rather the second rotation, because I skipped the first one. Okay, now let's take a look at the third rotation. Okay, so if you paid attention, you will have noticed that this line actually sort of went towards the back and then ended up being this line. Now that's not very helpful because the two are not connected. So let's look at the same rotation again, but this time let's look at a different line, like maybe this one. Let's take a look at that. Okay, we saw that this line became this line. Now let's take a look at the manual again. This first line, which goes straight up, is labeled here as plus Z. So let's put that down. And the other line, which is this sort of diagonal line, but it's the steeper one, not the shallower one, is labeled here as negative V. So let's write that down. So this time we have only one negative and one positive. What we do here is we swap the two. So this is VZ instead of ZV. Because we were looking at Z and then V, but the V is negative, so we swap the order, VZ. Now to convince yourself that it is in fact VZ, we can look at the same thing again, but this time take a look at what happens to the positive V line. So for example, this one. Take a look at this line and see what happens to it. There we go. So you will have noticed that that line became this line. Alright, so now if we were to write this down, it would be plus V plus Z, which is just VZ. Now, okay, so we get the same result regardless of which of the two axes we look at. Okay, now let's take a look at the fourth rotation. Did you catch that? Alright, let's try this again, and this time pay attention to this line again as before, and see what happens to it. Okay, that was perhaps a little hard to see, but what happened is it became this line. So once again, this is the negative V that we were looking at earlier, and the first one, the one going to the right, if you look here, that is positive X plus X. So once again, we have one positive and one negative, so we need to swap their order. So this is Vx. And now let's take a look at the fifth rotation. Again, pay attention to this line, see what happens to it. And again, that didn't help us. So let's take a look at this line and see if that helps us. It became this line. Okay, let's take a look at the manual. Once again, the vertical line is this one here, negative z. And the other line, which is now the shallower diagonal, not the steeper one that we had earlier, this one is marked as negative w. Alright, so we have a negative z, negative w, negative z, negative w, and again the negatives cancel out. So we have z and w. Now let's go to the first rotation, the one that I've been avoiding the whole time, and you will see why. So once again, pay close attention to what this line does. Okay, that didn't really help, did it? Let's look at it again, and this time pay attention to what this line does. That didn't help either, did it? Right, so that line became this line, by the way. Okay, so we need to try something else. So let's try this one. Pay close attention to what this line does. Okay, that line became this line. So this is why the horizontal and vertical lines didn't help us, because this is a rotation that involves both of the diagonal axes. Right, so the first arrow was a positive w, right? That's this one here, positive w. And then the other one is a negative v, negative Victor, this one here. Which means that the rotation in total is vw. Okay, now let's try a fresh cube and look at some more rotations. And we're back again with a new cube, slightly different color and different rotations. So let's take a look at the first rotation, and again, pay attention to what this top line does. Here goes. Okay, you may have noticed the line went towards the left, but then it sort of disappeared. It became a sort of short line that was kind of like going inwards. This is the one axis that you cannot directly see, because this is the axis that is aligned with your view of the cube. In the manual, there is a sentence down here which explains this. The y-axis is not shown, and it is perpendicular to x and z, which means at a right angle to both x and z, and it means it points out of the module away from the bomb. Okay, so positive y is the direction that points away from the bomb, and negative y is the one that points into the bomb. Now, in the example that we had here, it is pointing into the bomb. This line was going sort of into the bomb, and this means that the rotation is a negative x, because it's going to the left, and negative y, because it's going into the bomb. So the first rotation is xy. Alright, let's take a look at the second rotation. Alright, now if you've already practiced from the previous module that we were looking at, you may recognize that. But in case you didn't, I'm going to play it to you again, and I want you to pay attention to what this line does. Did you see that? This line went up like that, and then came down like this. So this is the two diagonals one, so it's either VW or WV. And which one is it? Well, it goes up the shallower one, so it goes in the positive W direction, according to the manual. And then it goes down the other direction, which is listed here as minus V. Okay, so it's W minus V, and because we have one minus and only one plus, we need to swap the order. So it's VW. Now let's take a look at the third rotation. If you are practiced at this by now, you will have noticed that this line became this line. So we now know that this is an x followed by a negative v, so it's vx. Fourth rotation. Did you notice that? We had one of those lines disappear again. It was this line here going into the bomb. That is exactly the same as what we already had here, so that's xy. And finally, the fifth rotation. Now that was a bit difficult to see, so let's try that again, and this time let's pay attention to what this line does. Did you see that? It turns out that this line, this time, is disappearing into the bomb. So now we have the steep diagonal going down, that's a negative v, and then we have it going into the bomb, which is a negative y. So our rotation now is vy. Okay, now that we've figured out what the 5 rotations are, let's see how to actually solve the module, because there is a second step to it. And that's where this big table comes in, which we haven't used yet. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look up the last, the 5th rotation in that table, vy, that's this one here, and we're going to use the second column, the order column. These letters actually stand for colors, so this is yellow, red, blue, green, and we're going to associate them in order with the other 4 rotations. Okay? And then we're going to look up the face information for the other rotations. So xy gives us zag top right. vw, well, that one's down here, so that's pong back right. We'll go over what that means in a second. vx is this one. And xy, we already had xy, but we're going to do that again. And now let's take a look at what happens. So here's the game. Here's the bomb with the rotations that we've just determined. And we're gonna, you start by pressing simply any vertex, it doesn't matter which one. As soon as you do that, it will stop rotating. And then it will also show these colors on all of the vertices, all of the little dots. All right, now which one of these do we need to press? Let's take a look at the first one. First of all, what do these words even mean? Ping, pong, zag, and then of course top and right. Well, this is where this diagram comes in with the other words. So left and right mean positive and negative x, and the y-axis is top and bottom. All right, so in order to unconfuse yourself about it, imagine you're looking at it like this. Imagine you're standing on the module looking at the Ultracube. Now you can see how front and back are, front from this perspective, and top and bottom are away to the module and towards the module, right? So the top is the one that is away from the bomb, and the bottom is the part that is closer to the bomb. And of course, left and right are obvious because those are the same as here. But what about zig and zag and ping and pong? Well, those are along the sort of diagonalish axes. So ping means the one that is further down on the steeper axis. So for example, if we look at these two vertices here, the red and the green, this one is the ping and that one's the pong, right? So for any particular vertex here, you look at whether it's on the bottom or the top of one of those steep diagonal lines, and the one that's on the bottom is the ping, and the one that's on the top is the pong. Similarly, for the shallower diagonal, which is the w-axis, these are called zig and zag, right? So if we look at some random point here, the shallower diagonal is this one, so that makes this one the zig and that one the zag. Okay, so let's take a look at what this says. It says zag top right. Okay, so first of all, top means we're looking only at the vertices that we can see from the top, right? So not the ones that become hidden or overlapping. Then we look at right, so all of the vertices on the right, that's this part here. Everything else is left. And now we need all the zag vertices, which means that along the shallower axis, we want the ones on the right. So we're looking at this, 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 and this. And these are the 4 vertices that we're interested in. Right? We need to press one of those, and which one is dictated by the color. So the yellow one. So that's this one. Now, as a little hint here, there are some rectangles. Like for example, if you look at these 4, you will notice there is no yellow and there is a duplicated red. Whenever that happens, you know that you're looking at the wrong 4. Right? Similarly, like if you had, like for example, these 4, you know that this is wrong because there are 2 greens. So if you're looking at the correct 4, there will always be all 4 colors. Now, obviously, that's not a guarantee because, like, for example, these 4 here also have all 4 colors, right? But it's just one way of knowing, like, if you do have a duplicate, you know you're wrong. Okay, so in this case, we have the Zag top right yellow, which we agreed is this one. So I press that. And you can see that a little status highlight opens up here, which indicates that we've done the first stage. So now let's look at the second one. We now want Pong back right. All right, so first of all, back, because we're looking at it from this angle, basically. Back means this part here. And then right means just this part. Okay, so it's one of these 8. And then Pong means it's the top one, the one further up, on the steeper diagonal. So on this diagonal here, it would be that one. This is Ping, this is Pong. Alright, so since we're in this part here, and we want only the Pong ones, that would be this one, and then the 2 that are sort of covered by them. So it's these 4 that we're looking at. This, and this. And once again, you can see blue, green, red, and yellow, they're all there. We want to press the red one, so that would be this one. And that's correct. For the third stage, we now want Ping, Zig, and top. Now this is interesting because we have both the V and the W axis here. But first of all, top means we're looking at the ones that we can see, not the ones that are covered up. So that's good. So we don't need to rotate the bomb. Ping means we want the ones on the bottom of the steeper diagonals. And zig means we want the ones on the left of the shallower diagonals. So that would be this, 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 and this. And again, yellow, red, blue, green suggests that we might be on the right track. We want the blue one, so it's that one that we want. And that was the third one. Finally, for the fourth one, we have Zag top right. Now again, top means the ones that we're seeing, not the ones that are covered up. Right means it's one of these. And then zag, again, zigzag is the shallower diagonal. So along this diagonal, we want the one on the right, because the left one is zig. So it's either this one, this one, this one, or this one. Again, they have all 4 different colors. And we want the green one, which is that one. And that solves the module. Okay, now let's take a look at the Hypercube, which is basically a simpler and easier version of this. In this case, you still have left, right, up, down, top, bottom, but you only have zig and zag, and it's not sort of shallower, it's just a pure diagonal. So there is no v-axis. Looking at the manual, you see this diagram is now much simpler. We have x and z, and then the zig and zag axis is along here. Alright, so let's take a look at these rotations. So the first one, that top line, it goes here. So that's a positive x, negative z. Positive x, negative z. So that becomes zx. Now let's take a look at the second rotation. So here's our zx. And then for the second rotation, I noticed that the x-axis went into the module. And so that's a negative x, negative y. So that's xy. Now let's take a look at the third rotation. 1, 2, and here's the third one. Okay, so the vertical line here became the diagonal. So we have a negative z becoming a negative w. And so that would be zw. And here's the fourth one. This time, okay, the fourth and the fifth are actually reverses of each other, so that's very convenient. Now take a look at what this diagonal line here does. Now. See how it disappears into the module, and then it comes back. Okay, so the negative w became negative y, so that's a wy, and then we just have the reverse of that, which is yw. Alright. Let's click on a vertex, let's get some colors. And now let's take a look at the manual. It works exactly the same way as the Ultracube, just fewer stuff. So the last rotation, we start with that one. YW, we look at the colors. We have yellow, blue, green, red. Now for the other rotations, we want these. Now you will notice that now there are only 2 names rather than 3, because the Hypercube has only 4 dimensions rather than 5, and it gives you 2, the other 2 are determined by the color. So now we want XY, which is this one here, back right. Then ZW, which is here. And WY is here. So let's go through these in order. First of all, zig. Now zig is the sort of left part of the diagonal, so it's this cube here. And then we want the bottom of that, which means it's the part that is closer to the module. So we want these here, the yellow, the red, the blue, and the green there. And out of those we want the yellow. So this is the answer. Again, we have a little status indicator in the corner. For the next one, we want back right. Now back is this part, right is this part, so back right is these 4. Out of those we want the blue, now would be this one. And then we have bottom right. Again, right is here, bottom is on the module, so it's these 4. Blue, yellow, green, red. And out of those we want the green, which is this one. And finally, we have top front. Now top means the stuff that we can see that is not getting covered up. And front means here. Right? So out of these 4, the red, the yellow, the blue, and the green, we want the red. And that's the module solved. Okay, finally here's another module just to show you what happens when you get a strike, when you make a mistake. You can always press any of the vertices to stop the rotations, but as soon as it becomes colors, that's when you need to press the right button, right? So here's the rotations that I've already determined for this cube. So we want the zag right green. Now zag obviously is this cube, and on the right we have this. So this would be the green one, all right? But I'm just going to intentionally press a wrong one now, just to show you what happens. Alright, so you get a strike, and then it starts doing the rotations again, after doing some color shifting. There you go, there's the rotations. Now the thing is, these rotations are still the same, so these will not have changed. Right, so that was the third, so this is YX, and this is WY. You can probably convince yourself of that. But now, if I press another vertex again, it still wants the zag right green, but the green might not be in the same place as it was last time. Last time it was here, but that one's yellow now. So now the correct answer is this one here, because that one's green. Alright, and then we have zag bottom right. Now zag is this cube, and on the bottom, and red, not right, that would be this one. And then we have top back blue, top back, that would be this one. And then we have zag, bottom, yellow. That would be this one. Thank you for watching and enjoy the module.